Hello, everybody. All right. Yesterday's video, this one right here, Trump or Biden, who's better? So I posted that up, and I was going to continue that series, Trump or Biden, who's better? And I will continue that series, but I got a comment on that video, and it's an important comment that is the theme or the subject of today's video. It won't be as long as yesterday's. I try not to go too long. 26 minutes is a lot of me rambling, and here I am rambling already. So let me get right to it. This is the comment by Bonnie Creighton. I got to zoom where it fits on screen. All right. Bonnie Creighton, one of my favorite subscribers and viewers. Bonnie asks, please take a few minutes, or she, rather than asks, commands. There are a few questions in here. Please take a few minutes in another video to explain what it means when the President of the United States drafts an executive order to grant statehood to a foreign country. How does this help Artsakh? And when doing so, does this action have any effect on international laws where foreign policy is concerned? Holy cow, these are some good questions. Questions that I need to wrestle with, and I'm going to kind of answer them here. But before I answer this specifically, I want to go in a different direction. Statehood for Artsakh, what does that mean? Those who know what it means, or Armenians who are familiar with this conflict that's going on over there, when they hear statehood for Artsakh, they'd be like, yeah, that'd be awesome. In fact, on the other channel, Tales of Truth, I interviewed an eminent scholar, probably the most informed academic that you can talk to about this part of the world. And I broached that with him, and I'll post it in a video. It's in the long interview if you want to go there, but I don't want to ramble too much. But I proposed it to him. I said, what if the United States of America recognized statehood for Artsakh? And he goes, wouldn't that be nice? Or I'd love that. He had some kind of reaction. That was his genuine, instinctive reaction. I'm like, and I had just had the idea to kind of propose that, to pitch it, to even put together a campaign, a petition to get the President of the United States to recognize Artsakh. So what does that mean? Before I talk about that anymore, it got me thinking about some other things in my life, which let's just go straight to it. Proverbs 19:21, probably the first Bible verse I can remember memorizing. Many are the plans in a man's heart, the version I first read. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. So the way that applies, plans we have in our heart. I came up with this idea of statehood. I'm not the originator of the idea for statehood for Artsakh. I mean, that's all the people in Artsakh have been wanting that for a century, I'd say. But here I am, a non-Armenian, a Christian, concerned about my brothers and sisters on the far side of the planet that are having bombs rain down on them right now. And it's a very complex scenario. But some people say, yeah, it's a lofty goal, statehood for Artsakh. Yeah, that'll be the day. The cynic response. And yeah, it is a lofty goal. It's out there, and like, who am I to think that I could bring about, muster enough energy or troops or finances or attention or momentum to get something like that done. The United States of America recognizes this tiny little country over there that is supposedly property of another country, and et cetera, et cetera. Many of the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So I have like crazy ideas every now and then, and sometimes your ideas are the Lord's ideas. This verse is not saying don't make plans or be skeptical of your own plans. The whole point is to make plans, to pursue something, to pursue goodness, to pursue what is right. but don't get your heart set on your own plans. I think that's what this is saying, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And the best case scenario is the plans that you make, sometimes they are the Lord's plans. They are his purpose. For example, I met this amazing woman that I was like, wow, she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, and incredible. And she looks like she'd be a great mother, but you know, she hated me. I left an awful first impression, and you know, a friend of mine was interested in her, so it was like kind of hands off. And then a year goes by, and you know, time had moved on. My friend had moved on, and this thought comes to me. I'm like, I wonder if she's available. She's got to be going out with somebody. But I muscled. I sat myself down and I called her. And I even said to her, "Are you sitting down?" And I just shared with her how I felt. And it turns out she felt the same way. And this was after a year, and it was just kind of out of the blue. So if I hadn't called her and told her how I felt about her, what would have happened? I don't know. But we've been happily married for 20 years now. There's one example. Here's a second example. I was 33 years old and I got laid off from a career job. You know, most people are deep into a career by that time. And I'd only been working at that particular place for three and a half years, got laid off. And since I was young, I wanted to work in the entertainment industry. And here I am. Well, it's now or never. I'm not getting any younger. Completely jobless. I have been married 3 years and I have a 1-year-old child and a mortgage, and I have no job. Let's try and work in Hollywood. Most people will say, good luck. It's like the hardest threshold to cross is just getting your foot in the door, especially if you're not related to somebody or don't have any connections there at all, which I didn't. And about 35 years old, I got my first job in the entertainment industry, and now I have an Emmy, right? So if I had that idea and didn't act upon it, you know, I had those plans in my heart, and the Lord's purpose prevails, and it looks like those plans are lining up. Here's the last one I'm going to share with you about big ideas. You know, getting married is a big idea, and getting the career you want is a big idea. And then in the career I want to tell incredible stories rather than working for somebody else. So 3 years ago, I come across this incredible story of this guy named Soghomon, the greatest hero of the Armenian people. And I ask myself, why don't I know about this? How come I've never heard this story? Soghomon, it's incredible. Like, his life is a movie, or is a story, a long form story that people will be captivated by. And I had the idea, well, I remember like a month in, or within weeks of hearing about him, like, I need to get the life story rights to this guy. I'm telling you, the greatest hero of the Armenian people. And get the life story rights to this guy. And I got him. And that's why I'm even doing this podcast. And the other podcast is like, okay, so you have these big ideas, these crazy ideas that pop in your head. And maybe this is one of those ideas. Sovereignty for Artsakh. Statehood for Artsakh. All right. Now let me tell you why I think this is a good idea. Why should we focus on this? Artsakh is within the territory of Azerbaijan, recognized by the United Nations. And yet it has always, this little territory that you're looking at right here, has always been occupied by Armenians. Yes, there have been other ethnic populations of varying percentages that have lived in this region, but the majority population of this region has been Armenians. And Armenians have been in this part of the world for 4,000 years. 4,000 years, including Artsakh right over here. This is where Christianity began, right? Like, Jerusalem's down here. But Christianity, the Armenians are the first Christian nation in 301 AD. So this is where Christianity, the fulfillment of the Great Commission, go and make disciples of all nations, not just a few people in the nations, but the nations themselves. This is the first fulfillment of the Great Commission, Armenia. And it is being threatened. So fast forward to today's political climate, where geopolitics is so convoluted. We've got enemies that are our friends and friends that are our enemies. And it's just like you want to have everybody as your friend, but it's not possible. If there are nations that hate you, that preach to their people that America is evil, or whatever nation, like nations just they're the bad guy. You have to, if you have problems in your culture, deflection is one of the solutions, right? If it's not our fault, it's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. And find an enemy to blame. So here we have this tiny sliver of land that is Armenians. And so one idea is for it to be, what's the term? There's a technical term for it, but for it to become a part of Armenia. For the territory of Armenia to increase and just include that shape, so that this whole region would be governed by the government of Armenia. Yeah, that's going to make some enemies. That's not going to sit well with everybody in the area. The other option is to just give it all to Azerbaijan. Well, Azerbaijan would say, you don't have to give it to us. It's already ours. But they don't want the Armenians on the land. And that's the issue. They want to live on that land. They can't tolerate this other ethnic population in their midst. And that's what the current conflict is about. So what's the compromise? Not for, yes, for Azerbaijan and Armenia. Azerbaijan would not be happy with it. And I think some of the Armenians wouldn't be happy with it, that recognizing this little territory as its own independent nation, not as a part of Armenia and not governed by Armenia, but a sovereign nation of its own, which means Azerbaijan is losing territory they don't occupy anyway. And then Armenia would not be getting it as an increase in their territory. So I think, so the question being, now let's get back to this. What does it explain what it means when the President of the United States drafts an executive order to grant statehood to a foreign country? All right. So there are territories like this that have claimed independence, and that occasionally there will be another country that recognizes their independence. But all these territories are technically within the territory of another country. And that's the case in Georgia. So just north of Armenia, I think there's a couple, maybe it's in this part of Russia right here or Georgia. There's some territories in there that are like this, that have separated, and they have their own ethnic population and their own governance and are not officially recognized. But occasionally those territories are recognized by another nation. And it just means that depending on the influence of that other nation, that gives some protection to that territory. Like how motivated is Russia to come in and kill those people or kick them out or whatever? How are you going to motivate somebody to go and take over land? Sometimes they're motivated, sometimes you're not. But if another country is recognizing that territory, your motivation diminishes. This territory here, you've got all the big players in there. You've got Russia, Iran, and Turkey, and even China involved, and on both sides. Turkey's not so interested in Armenia. They're allies with Azerbaijan, so that's the most solid alliance. But they're interested in Armenia and wiping it out and it not existing. But Russia, it plays both sides. Iran plays both sides. China plays both sides. And the United States of America plays both sides. We've got alliances with Azerbaijan. They're an oil-rich nation. And Armenia, they're a Christian nation. We have a lot. And that in itself allies with them. And that's what I'm appealing to with this, because we are a Christian nation and the big dog, right? Russia's supposed to come in here and fix this, but Russia's playing both sides. If the United States, if the president drafts an executive order, so an executive order is just the president making a decision to do something, that he has the power to do. And the executive branch of the government has certain powers, and this would fall into his powers. Yeah, it's better to go through a process of getting approval and people voting on stuff, but in certain cases when there are emergencies, and this is shaping up to be an emergency. Plus, we have a president that. Oh, so how does this help Artsakh? Let me get into that. Well, it helps Artsakh by having the biggest country on the planet recognize it. Nobody recognizes it. Armenia doesn't even recognize it as a sovereign state right now. Nobody recognizes it. Russia could. And if you go to the other interview with Ronald Grigorsuni that I referenced earlier, he said Russia is the one that needs to recognize statehood for Artsakh, but Russia's not going to do it. So the United States... We have a president that does what he wants to do. And if it appeals to him and it seems rational to him, he'll do it. And so that's why this idea occurred to me, because I don't know that there's any other president that would do something this bold. But he's aligned himself with Christians, the evangelical community, even the Catholic community. He's the first president to ever speak at the March for Life. I don't know where his heart is. I don't know if he's a Christian. Only God knows that. But this is a Christian nation, and the people all around it want to wipe it out. I mean, that's the case. So I'm rambling now, but and when doing so, does this action have any effect on international laws where foreign policy is concerned? Yeah, obviously, it'll affect everybody who's involved in this conflict. But when the big dog steps in, the United States of America, that's the whole point. You get everybody to back off and everybody to pay attention. It'll get everybody's attention. And I mean, Trump moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. All of the foreign policy wonks said, no, you're going to stir up problems in the Middle East. That's just going to cause more bloodshed. Nope, that didn't happen. And then we've got these alliances forming with certain Arab states in Israel that nobody ever thought would happen. So this is the most important part of the planet right now. I mean, that people have been fighting over this forever. Like this is where Assyria attacked Israel, right? Like the Babylonians moved in and took them over and exiled them, etc. And, in Syria right here, you hear about the wars there, Iran, Iraq. And now you've got this little Christian nation here that's being attacked by Azerbaijan. So we have to help our friends. So hopefully that answers your question. I rambled on, but I will get back to the talking about headlines and stuff tomorrow. Bye. Bye.